This is the Patchwork Suite, where a single musical theme is the common thread in a season of variations. The heart of these variations is the theme we're listening to now, a poetic waltz by Enrique Granados. I'm your Patchwork Suite host, Mary Claire Murphy, and throughout the series, I speak with composers who have graciously written a short work expressly for this podcast. I've asked each composer to draw on both the Granados theme and on a textile they find meaningful. With each new voice we hear, and with each musical sampling, we're building a colorful and diverse patchwork of artistic expression. To the patchwork, we add an age-old sailcloth, quite the trusty companion in any maritime voyage into the great unknown. The sailcloth was of particular interest to Toledo composer and dedicated teacher Jay Welenc. And the spirit of sailing manifests in lots of ways through Jay's variation on the Granados waltz. But above all, he arranged the piece for the benefit of his orchestra students at the Toledo School for the Arts, or TSA. So today, we have the delight of hearing this Toledo ensemble in action. I took a field trip over to TSA, so if you catch any extraneous sounds throughout Jay's commentary, know that it's the ambiance of a vibrant school full of students practicing their craft. This is an arts community that Jay's called home for many years now, and there he teaches band, orchestra, career education, and introductory piano. Teaching and mentorship in general have been important parts of Jay's life for several decades.
This is my 43rd year of teaching. I spent at other schools across the Midwest, and I came to TSA in 2002 when it was brand new. And so it was fun to be at the front end of that journey and watch the institution grow to what it is today.
There's a fondness in Jay's voice when he reflects on those 43 years, and he clues us into what's kept that teaching spark kindled and burning bright.
Well, it's always been my personal mission to give to my students the opportunities that I got in school. School was a real eye-opener for me in terms of what I could be as a person and what I could do in terms of a career, and I wanted to afford my students that same chance. And so we've had a good amount of success at TSA, and it's just fun to keep going, because there's always a new person that comes into your classroom and always a new person that comes into your studio, and they're interested in this, and you want to give them their shot.
The Toledo School for the Arts opened in 1999, and Jay came along to teach just a few years later. So since he's been there from its very early years, Jay's got a bird's eye view of the school and how it's evolved over time.
Yeah, it was pretty brand new, and it was still kind of an experiment in a way. There was not a lot of certainty that, this was going to be the institution that it is now. People put a lot of blood and sweat and effort and hard work into doing this, and people lent their professional skills to the process when it was in its infancy, and as it grew, it just kind of built on itself. So it's a lot bigger now, and we have programs that are pretty well established, and we've had students go on to great success after high school here, and sometimes they're even very successful while they're in high school here. Just the kinds of achievements that our students have are fairly remarkable, and it's been that environmental opportunity that allows the kids to flourish here because they feel supported and welcome, and they have teachers who are really devoted to making sure that they can take full advantage of their opportunities, not just as artists but as people.
As a launching pad for local students in the arts, it couldn't be more fitting that Jay conceptualized a voyage for his variation on the patchwork theme. The idea first came to him when he recalled conducting the soundtrack to a popular Disney film.
A few years ago, I conducted with a student group some of the soundtrack to Moana. And when I watched Moana, the thing that struck me at first was the sheer bravery it took for people to be on these little boats on a vast ocean and sail in a direction that, they didn't know how this was going to turn out at first, right? And just the sheer science and the navigational skills it took along with that to really be able to exist in that environment so successfully. And then, so that got me thinking, okay, well, the fabric on a ship in ancient times was the sail. And, so I started to think about what kinds of brave people it took to get on a wooden boat in a stormy sea and sail across the ocean with no computers, no cell phones, just on sheer skill and familiarity with being able to do it on their own. I thought that's something that I wanted to kind of depict. So my variation is based on a voyage in one of these ships, a wooden ship with a sail, maybe from 1,200 years ago, sailing across the North Atlantic, and all of the things that entails, the weather, the having to bring your own rations, how do you find where you're going, just being able to exist in that small space and then make it back. If you're on a merchant ship, then you've got to bring the goods back, that's part of it too, not just yourself. And so all of that was just really something that made me think about how people of that time were dealing with all of the challenges that were set in front of them in their environments and the bravery it took to get on the ocean.
Certainly an ocean voyage in ancient times was not for the faint of heart. But in this music, we perhaps feel the perils of sea travel even more poignantly, knowing that the theme for it was composed by someone who died at sea during World War I. And pulling on that naval warfare thread even further, Jay describes how a World War II film played into his creative process. It's a documentary film called Victory at Sea.
When I was younger, like in high school, I became acquainted with the Victory at Sea when I was studying World War II. And just because, I wasn't there, I had to find out a lot about what happened at the time from film. And, it just really resonated with me what kind of effort it took for the navies of the time to, not just, sail a ship on an ocean, but have to, engage in combat, the bravery of the sailors and the flyers of the time, just like, doing all that at once was really an eye-opener for me. And so when I was listening to the soundtrack, there's one of those that is based on a tango theme. And, it got me to think about what was the composer thinking there in terms of how, the interactions between these combatants were playing out. And, comparing it to a dance theme kind of made sense to me, I guess. It's a little bit of a back and forth kind of thing, much more deadly fashion than the war, of course, but that underscore kind of always stuck in my head. And so when I was thinking about this, we have a waltz theme. So here we are, just one more way to kind of take that dancing and depict it on the sea. So you're kind of like having to do your dance, do your interacting with the ocean and the ship and the weather, and think of it as kind of partners in being able to make your way.
With all these dynamics at play, Jay reimagined the character of the original sunny-sounding waltz theme. By flipping it into a more stormy-sounding mode with an undulating accompaniment. There are also occasional interludes that are more declamatory in nature, like the short opening of fanfare to announce the start of the journey and the voyager's steel resolve. Since the original theme is part of a piano cycle, it's worth noting that the instrumentation sheds a new light on the theme, too. So I asked Jay about some of the advantages of this arrangement for orchestra, and he commented on
just the variety of sounds that an orchestra can bring to the depiction of the image. Had a broader palette to play with, if you will, in terms of how to make this sound like what I was imagining in my head. And so a little bit of video game soundtrack was playing out, a little bit of movie soundtrack was playing out when I was imagining this. And so I tried to make it sound, in that frame, where we're thinking of, okay, if I was going to make a movie of this, what would the underscore sound like?
At the time of recording, the students were amidst a very busy performance season, but they were able to dig into the project for 3 or 4 rehearsals. The goal was to then play the theme and Jay's variation live at one of the first Friday concerts at the Toledo School for the Arts.
So the first Friday of every month, the school has a public presentation on Friday morning. Starts at 9 a.m. and we have a gallery showing and then a stage show. And it's meant to invite the public in and give them a little snapshot of what we do. So on that January 1st Friday, the orchestra is going to present this variation. So we have some students who will play the original theme, and then we'll play the variation, and we'll talk about this process. And, part of the purpose of the first Fridays is not just to be entertaining, but to explain what we do as a school. And so part of our lesson in orchestra, for this piece is, how did you make a variation? What does that look like? What sorts of things did you take this from and move to? So give us a little bit of a chance to present a little thumbnail of what that process was for our students.
Now that we've also gotten a snapshot into this one of many creative endeavors at TSA, we can enjoy a recording of the whole work, in rehearsal and conducted by Jay himself. Jay Welenc evoked the uncertainty, the bravery, and the adventure of sea travel with his variation on a waltz theme by Enrique Granados. That was a recording of a student orchestra in rehearsal with Jay's direction at the Toledo School for the Arts. My sincere thanks to Jay and all his students for their time, effort, and participation in the Patchwork Suite. To learn more about the podcast or revisit the original Granados theme, queue up the Patchwork Suite Episode 1 and find all subsequent episodes online at wgte.org.